Way back in '96, my then wife and I were watching the Republican convention. After a bunch of speeches that were basically the same, we talked about how easy that must be. Republicans just needed to land on 5 or 6 core ideas, and everybody's on board. But Democrats were dividing up into multiple groups, all focused on their own group's issues. Then, every 4 years, they'd have to get all of these factions to vote for one president. I was a Democrat at that time, but I could already see the trap that the party was building for itself. They're a lot farther down that road now, and it's obvious that identity politics is kryptonite to party cohesion. That's why Joe Biden sounds so desperate when he calls for unity at the end of every speech. He's not calling for unity across the political divide. He's calling for unity within his own party. That's been the Democrats' dirty little secret for decades. For months, I've been telling my liberal friends that the flood of charges against Trump is designed to make him the GOP nominee. They don't get it. I show them the polling and how every new round of prosecution has pushed him higher and higher. They see that, but they refuse to believe that this is a Democratic strategy. To be clear, strategy is sometimes more instinctive than consciously conspiratorial. Much of what humans do is prompted by drives that we don't even admit to having. My liberal friends can't or won't see what seems obvious to me, and that's this. Democrats need Donald Trump. Thomas Sowell once said that a community organizer doesn't really organize a community. Instead, he organizes a community around a grievance. Social justice is the catch-all term for most activism on the left. The idea, simply put, is that no group of people should be disadvantaged due to circumstances beyond their control. Identity politics, however, seeks to enforce equality through the imposition of law. This presupposes that good faith persuasion will always fail and that oppressive systems are self-sustaining by nature. To make laws, you need power. So it became important that people of a given ethnicity, for example, could choose leaders who, quote, look like them. Like when AOC primaried a 10-term white male incumbent in a predominantly Hispanic district. An attractive Spanish-speaking Latina who promised to abolish ICE and get everybody free health care was basically a gimme. Just play into the perceived oppression narrative and collect a win. But problems develop as you scale up and different identity districts rub up against each other. In late 2022, the big scandal here in LA was when Hispanic city council members were recorded trashing a gay white councilman and his adopted black child. Here was an all-Latino group of politicians meeting to talk about consolidating their own power, when their female leader says that the gay politician's son is like a little monkey that his dad uses as an accessory. There was even trash talk about Jews and Armenians on that tape. Everybody on all sides of that mess was a Democrat. Turns out that focusing subgroups on their own demands doesn't make them love other subgroups. Here's Dave Chappelle, at a loss to explain why so many black people were attacking Asians.
You know what I was watching? And I hate to say this, but there was a lot of videos, sadly, of black people beating up Asians for no reason. Oh, these attacks were unprovoked. I couldn't believe it. And I was sitting in the room watching this shit. It was stressing me out. But I was stressed because I kept watching these videos of my beloved black people beating up my beloved Asian people and being so cruel.
But maybe it's not so mysterious. Seeing people as members of groups rather than as individual humans is the definition of stereotyping. And we all know where that leads. If you believe that white people secretly want you to fail, what keeps you from also believing the worst about Asians? And this goes on and on. Feminist heroes and health officials are punished by trans allies if they dare to define womanhood. University presidents are unable to call out anti-Semitism on campus in the wake of October 7 for fear of offending protesters. Democrats need all of these people's votes, the attackers and the attackees. Pulling all the strands of this unraveling coalition back together every 4 years has become a nightmare for the blue team. This is where Donald Trump comes in. You see, when much of your party's power is dispersed across various identity groups, It's easier to create a common enemy than a common cause. Trump rose to power on a simple understanding. Conservative blue-collar Americans had lost all political relevance. They had seen every color, ethnicity, religion, and sexual inclination other than their own be presented as socially precious, while they themselves were ordered to check their privilege and walk on PC eggshells. AM radio had been cultivating their resentments for a long time, but they'd mostly suffered in silence, until Trump convinced them that they too had an identity worth politicizing. He put MAGA hats onto ditto heads and invited them all to the pep rally. Trump is a branding savant. Still, to win, he needed to go from household name to household obsession. He did this by offending everybody left of center with such juicy word bombs that every attention seeker left and right amplified his signal for their own purposes. He wound up with billions of dollars worth of free round-the-clock publicity. Democrats were out of shape after 8 years of no-drama Obama. Trump just took them by surprise when he muscled past them in 2016. In Los Angeles, the grief and anger were palpable, both eventually curdling down into a sort of heart-sick hatred. But they've had 7 years to recover, and now every smart-ass comment from Trump's time in politics is a bomb in their ammo box. At our current juncture, most Democrats actually believe that Donald Trump is a racist, sexist, ableist, fat-shaming, anti-queer xenophobe who tried to overthrow the republic with a couple thousand unarmed conspiracy buffs. There's something for every Democrat to hate, all in one big sure-to-offend package. This is why they need him on the ballot. Ironically, the guy who single-handedly divided the American right will be counted on next summer to unite the American left. Did you know that Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals is still a #1 bestseller? In it, he warns against focusing too wide when going after the oppressor. Pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, polarize it. Don't try to attack abstract corporations or bureaucracies. Identify a responsible individual. Ignore attempts to shift or spread the blame. Sound familiar? Quote, "The enemy properly goaded and guided in his reaction will be your major strength." Are you getting this? Why talk vaguely about oppression if you can identify one powerful person as the ultimate oppressor? And really, who is easier to goad and bait than Donald Trump? Imagine what might have happened if Democrats really wanted to be free of Trump. They very easily could have just ignored him throughout Biden's term. Just let the spotlight gradually fade while time passed and the MAGA army moved on to other shiny objects. But they didn't do that, did they? No, they kept him in the news. Immediately with the second impeachment, and later a long, slow burn with the January 6 hearings. And now they're really ramping it up, throwing everything into the fan blades, knowing full well that they are making Trump into a martyr. This is the list of scheduled court dates between now and the Republican convention. You can call Democrats a lot of things, but slackers is not one of them. As his big win in Iowa illustrates, it's all designed to ensure that Donald Trump will be the nominee. And after the convention, if Trump gets the nod, I predict separate organized protests for each and every identity group throughout the late summer. And then, as the leaves fall and the weather cools, huge protests where they all come together in their mutual hatred of all things MAGA. In 2020's summer of political looting, engaged equaled enraged. But Democrats can't go there again. Not when they're the incumbent party. No, they need to get serious about the unity that Joe is always begging for. They need to start pulling their own party back together. And for that, Democrats need Donald Trump. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. If you want to support what I do, there's a few links below. And a special thanks to those of you who've subscribed to my new Substack site. There's new writing over there every week. And if you liked this video, share it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to our channel and then click the little bell to get notifications.